Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth. I'm your host, the Game Master, and in this episode, we're going to be talking about our new Mutants campaign. But before we get into it, make sure you smash like, check to see if you're still subscribed, and leave us a comment. That helps us out with the YouTube algorithm, but also we love hearing from you guys. We have an awesome community here, and that's because of you. So thank you so much for being here. With all that said, let's dive in. The prologue to this one takes place in Westchester, New York, at the X Mansion. Earlier in the day, the students were in the danger room where Poster Boy used animate image on a poster of a Lamborghini. Then he got in a bad accident. Powerhouse, aka the Gold Lantern, felt bad that this happened on his watch. And when a student named Hoshi Hime ran his mouth, another student named Trace Pryor punched him out. So Professor Xavier suspends Trace from school and has a talk with Powerhouse about the importance of student safety. At the end of the day, Hector split into three Hectors, and they hit on Airhead, Bubble Girl, and Zombie Girl in the gardens behind the school. Then Hector number three was abducted by a mutant named Val Grafton, which brings us to the main plot of our newest game session. The various students gather in the danger room again and run the same scenario they did the day before, but this time, Bubble Girl does not roll the massive critical success that she did yesterday. Without that key component, the students fail this time, and the holographic sentinel defeats them. After the exercise is over, Powerhouse, the Gold Lantern, tells them each what they'd done wrong. He tells Axel to watch his temper, adding that Axel broke the glass on the front of the mall and that if he can find a way to fight the Sentinel without causing property damage, that would be preferable. He tells Axel's roommate, Miguel, that just because he is right handed, he only fires energy blasts out of that hand. Powerhouse would like to see Miguel learn to fire energy blasts out of both hands, doubling his attacks. He tells Bubble Girl she keeps her bubble existing even when it's getting knocked into her fellow teammates. He tells her she needs to learn to let go and make a new bubble instead. She says that universally speaking, she struggles to let go of things. After that, the students break for lunch, and Hector 1 and Hector 2 tell the others that Hector 3 is missing. They ask if he doesn't have a hive mind or something, and he explains that each Hector is his own man until they merge. Then he gets the memories of whatever his duplicates experienced. So they check the security system and see the moment that Hector 3 went missing. They check that area, and each of the player characters makes a roll to look for tracks. For the most part, they are fairly unsuccessful since they are starting level characters. But in each step of this process, there's always one student that rolls just high enough to follow the trail of breadcrumbs, and that leads them to the nearest zoo. When they get to the zoo's parking lot, they find the van that Val Grafton was driving. And when they search it, they find something horrific. Inside are the remains of Hector 3, and each piece of him is still alive and moving. Bubble Girl screams, and Alexander, the photo negative student with the bluish skin and white hair, tells her that she's drawing attention to the team. But just then, more screams are heard and people are running out of the zoo. The heroes are now torn as to how to proceed. So Miguel grabs a piece of Hector number 3 and slams it into Hector number 1, who reabsorbs that piece against his will. Hector number 1 is horrified as he suddenly absorbs some of his duplicate's memories of what Val did to him. Hector number one tells the others he was dissected against his will. And Axel starts helping Miguel merge pieces of Hector 3 back into the original Hector, which is traumatic for Hector 1. As they do this, Alexander and Bubble Girl investigate the panicking crowd and find out that Val Crafton used his powers on elephants, removing the ends of their trunks and replacing them with huge snakes. So it's all the worst parts of an elephant stampede mixed with poisonous snake bites. Seeing this, Bubble Girl starts to put bubbles around people, protecting them from injury. Warren uses his teleportation to scout around. Thurman uses sonic beam on the nearest elephant snake hybrid. Sean Weaver uses his nature powers to try to calm down the elephants, but it doesn't work. His brother Saxton uses his tech abilities to interface with the security system and cameras to try to see where the villain is currently at. Alexander spots the villain down a winding brick path labeled Safari Land, so he runs towards the villain. Hoshi, Miguel, and Axel head that way too. On the path, they see that Val Grafton took Hector 3 apart and took the parts of his body that gave him his powers and added them to his own body. So he now has the split power just like Hector has. Grafton turns into two identical Graftons, and each one walks off the path into the tree line in opposite directions. So Axel, Miguel, and Powerhouse all chase the one on the left. As they do, Alexander decides that Grafton is going to steal body parts from Hoshi and will steal Hoshi's neutralize power. Alexander thinks that if that does happen, the villain may become unbeatable. So he knocks out Hoshi in a single punch and then drags him back towards the front of the zoo. As he does this, the Grafton that went to the right runs back towards the front of the zoo on the other side of the tree line. He comes out of the tree line then and abducts Sean Weaver, whose melodic voice and singing could soothe savage beasts. Grafton steals Sean's voice box and now gains the animal control power as well as animal summoning. So he summons a couple gorillas to attack Alexander. Meanwhile, Axel, Miguel, and Powerhouse chase the other Grafton to a building. They split up and have the building surrounded. Axel goes in through a dock area where employees can back a truck up to load and unload stuff. And when he walks in, he is swarmed by insects that Grafton has fused together. So Axel gets a face full of venomous spiders that have now been given wings so they can fly. And his temper gets the best of him, so he sets the entire building on fire. Back by the front gate, where Bubble Girl is still saving innocent bystanders and trying to contain these weird snake elephant things, two gorillas attack Alexander, and the one rolls a massive critical success. And when he does, he knocks out Alexander. Bubble Girl tries to put a bubble around both he and Hoshi, but can't. Her bubbles are sphere-shaped, and they won't form if there is solid matter in their way. And with the boys laying flat against the ground, she can't envelop them. So she struggles to lift Alexander and make a bubble around he and herself. As she does, the other gorilla grabs Hoshi and drags him into the tree line to be cannibalized for parts by Grafton. Bubble Girl taps the X-Men logo on her costume, and in episode number 1, we established these work like they did in the X-Men animated series, where they are communicators. So she says she has a man down and needs help. Powerhouse hears this and drops what he's doing. He heads to Bubble Girl and subs the omni power of his gold power ring for regeneration, usable on others. and he saves the life of Alexander, who was just a few hit points away from dying. With Powerhouse lured away, though, the other Grafton attacks Miguel, removing both of his arms. Miguel screams. Axel hears this and heads that way. Grafton is in a clearing, adding Miguel's arms to himself when an enraged Axel shows up and decides to push the attack. Axel rolls high and does successfully push his fire powers, which he shoots the villain with, rolling lots and lots of doubles. So he hits Grafton with 18 APs of fire, incinerating him with black flames so hot they melt nearby steel objects. And unfortunately, they burn the skin off of Miguel too. The zoo is on fire, and it's so hot the water from the sprinkler systems just turns to steam. Axel feels horrible that this got so out of hand, so he throws the badly burned Miguel over his shoulder and heads back to where the others are. Bubble Girl is in tears, and Powerhouse tells everyone to head back to the X Mansion while he tries to put out the flames. The students retreat, and Powerhouse puts out the fires with his power ring, creating force fields that suck the air out of certain areas. He manages to do this without any of the animals dying, but he still feels horrible at the end of the day. That night, the X-Men's infirmary is full of students. Hector Redford is recovering from what Hector 3 experienced at the hands of Val Grafton. Hoshihime is missing his arms, as is Miguel Norton. Saxton Weaver is missing an eye and a hand. Sean Weaver got his voice box removed. Thurman Crocker has lost his sonic beam. Warren Kaninsky lost the ability to teleport. And Powerhouse feels like a failure. He feels like he isn't fit to be a teacher, and he is heavily considering quitting. But he sets those feelings aside for right now, and he calls an old friend of his named Dave Eckelberger. Once upon a time, Powerhouse was a Green Lantern. Dave and some other guys became new Green Lantern recruits, and Powerhouse taught them how to use their powers. Dave was stranded in limbo for a little while, and Powerhouse went back for him, bringing him back to Earth K. After that, Dave's metagene was activated, and he developed several new powers, including biophysical control, body transformation others, grafting, sense alteration, and shape change others. So right now, Dave is one of the few people who might be able to help Powerhouse's students. And that's where we left this one. Normally, I'd say we had a good time playing the game, but I think the villain was tougher than the heroes were ready for. Either that or he was more frightening than they expected. Whatever the case may be, my wife hated this one. She didn't like seeing the other students getting attacked by this guy. My son got so mad that at one point he punched a wall, and he never does that. So I was really surprised by all of this. The first episode of this campaign went badly. The second one went pretty good. And now the third one seems to be pretty bad again. So if we were doing best 2 out of 3, that wouldn't bode well for the idea of us playing more games in this series. Conversely, after we ended this game, our newest player, Brad, said he didn't have to go anywhere that night. So we played some G.I. Joe in 3rd edition GURPS, and that game went incredibly well. So at least the one day of the week when we got to play this week ended with us having a good time. But like I say, as of right now, I'm not sure if we'll keep playing with these characters or what. I think as of tonight, our gaming group is probably leaning more towards the G.I. Joe game instead, but we'll see. We will all sleep on it, and we can't play next weekend due to schedule conflicts. So that will give us even more time to think things over. And through the week, we'll talk via social media and see what everybody wants to do. But yeah, that was it for this one. As always, we hope you found it to be interesting. If so, and you'd like to support the channel, smash that like button, make sure you're still subscribed, and leave us a comment. And from everybody here at the longest running superhero role-playing game on Earth, we hope you have a good one, and we'll see you in the next adventure. Bye.